Hey everyone, welcome to this CSJ podcast. I'm your host Jay. This is the INFJ Coffeehouse, and it's a place where when you think of coffee house for music, it's a little bit lighter, a little bit more mellow, but it's also sometimes a little more deep. And so that's what we're going to try to focus on here today. Is stay in line with those characteristics. And speaking of music, I thought the music recommendation today would be the London Suede and Life is Golden, a fairly recent musical piece from them, maybe a year and a half old. I have to double check, but not too old. It's particularly appropriate, I think, today because it's not so much about the lyrics, although the lyrics are incredible. It's the video, and so I'd recommend everybody check it out on YouTube or wherever. The entire video is shot. It's aerial footage of the remains around Chernobyl. And Chernobyl is in the Ukraine. And of course, this week, we have the Ukraine-Russian conflict going on. So for those reasons, and Chernobyl, in some ways, maybe being a metaphor for war or destruction, loss of life, those kinds of things. I thought maybe it makes sense as a tribute to members of our community who are in Ukraine, and there are some. One of the most important line, or I say important, one of the lines in the lyrics that I like the most is, "You're not alone when the world puts all the winter in you." So anyway, great lyrics on that, a great video. I encourage you to check it out. Life is Golden by the London Suede. So last night, I was invited to a small get-together here in town. A group of friends of the guy that I went with. He had asked me to go with him. None of these people I knew, so it wasn't. It turned out to be about 20 people. It was a little uncomfortable for a responding guy like myself, but in the end, it turned out to be quite enjoyable. And one of the people that I met there was an INFJ, has his PhD in psychiatry, and the reason I mention this is thinking back to a video, Musings of an INFJ, that I'd done some time ago, talking about the homeless population and transient population that are in the area where I live here in downtown. He did his PhD thesis on homeless men and their psychiatric needs, their psychiatric profile, and whatnot. And but we weren't able to finish our conversation, and then it came time to go. And it is actually at his house that the party was being hosted. He was hosting it. We were leaving, and he said, "Jay, we need to finish up our discussion." I said, "Yeah," and somebody else said, "What discussion was that?" And I said, he said, "We were talking about the homeless." And I said, "Yeah, he deals with the homeless professionally. I deal with the homeless as a habit. I'm sorry, as a hobby," which is kind of true. I just, I don't even know why I bring it up, but it's a little bit informative maybe, but I just found it interesting. Another INFJ who had this interest in the homeless and that became the basis of an interesting conversation between us. Anyway, maybe some of you can relate to that. What I wanted to do is for today, oops, I think I may have just lost it, did we? No, here it is. All right, so there was a, I'm going to try and do this. What do I need to do? Oh, yes. Hang on just a second, bear with me. All right, here we go. So as you'll recall, one of the things I want to do with the INFJ Coffeehouse is to use Quora as a source of some of the things we talk about. And I'm doing that today. The question, oh, by the way, I mentioned Emily in the last episode of INFJ Coffeehouse, who told me on Quora that I was wrong, and that my description of NI was completely wrong. And I challenged her back and said, well, tell me how I'm wrong. And she has yet to respond. I didn't think she would. Anyway, moving on from Emily. Today's question is, are INFJs supposed to be extroverted? Now, I know what the question is actually asking, but I immediately got hung up on the word supposed to be. I mean, is any type supposed to be one way or another? I don't know. It's funny to me how so many people, and you know who you are, so many people get bent out of shape by being put in a box. That the 16 types puts people in a box. It categorizes them. Well, it does, but again, it's primary preference, right? The sides of the box are permeable. They're not hard. They're not rigid. They're fluid in a lot of ways. It's primary preference. But yet these same people who complain about being put in a box are also the ones that ask the questions, well, who is the most this? Or who's least likely to do that? Or in this case, are INFJs supposed to be extroverts? In other words, despite their own misgivings about about defining patterns of behavior and in the sense of being confined only to those patterns, that's what they want to do with everybody else, is categorize and confine and anyway, just a little ironic. But nevertheless, it's the way it is. But back to the question, are INFJs supposed to be extroverted? I think the question being asked is, are INFJs really introverts, or are they more correctly extroverts? Well, of course, they're introverts. They are true introverts. Now, I think it would be a fair statement to say they are the most extroverted of the introverts. Certainly one of the types most likely or closer to extroversion than some of the other introverts. That doesn't mean they are not introverts. They're not responding, but because they are. It's just like the example I gave you myself at that little shindig last night. I didn't know a soul there. 20 people didn't know a soul there. But they were very welcoming, accepting, struck up some good conversations with many of them. But nevertheless, I was ready to go. After 2 hours, of standing on the sidelines, hoping someone would come up and talk to me, getting some courage up to go talk to them, and trying to find a conversation of interest beyond just small talk, which fortunately I did find with that other INFJ. But I was ready to go. I was ready to get out of there, come home, and recharge my batteries. It takes a lot of energy. INFJs are responding. Now, why do they come across as extroverted? Nobody believes me when I tell them I am introverted. My friends, I mean, because they see me in a different light. They see me because I know them. Maybe it's a one-on-one situation or small group, and I'm comfortable with them. I know them, and they're accepting of me. And so, yeah, interaction becomes easier. But, you really have to look at cognitive functions too, right? Extroverted feeling parent, extroverted sensing inferior. So wanting to make other people happy, being in tune with their emotions, wanting to help, and also wanting to give other people a good experience. So the word feeling, right? Feeling is an interesting word. It's one of those words in English where feeling can mean emotions. It can also mean physical comfort. So when you say, how do you feel to someone, obviously it depends on them. They may take it, well, how am I feeling emotionally, or how I'm feeling physically? It's all context driven. But anyway, INFJs, FE and SE. So to me, FE and SE, having both of those in the ego, drives the INFJ's need for interaction. Despite their introversion, they, in order to be healthy and happy, they have to have interaction with people. But it's on their terms, right? It's on their terms. When, where, how long, but they have to have it. To isolate themselves is to, which many do, and but it is in the long run unhealthy, and they have to get out of that and get out with people. I think in some ways that's why, and just say for me personally, COVID lockdowns have been difficult. Being single, living alone, and during COVID, having to work from home, not having interaction with coworkers and customers and clients and whatnot. Very difficult. FE and SE, more than, in my mind, more than TE or NE, needs to have the interpersonal connection. I may be wrong, and if you think I am, by all means tell me. But that's my sense, is FE and SE are more needing of the interpersonal, in-person interaction, and INFJs need that. Anyway, so let me give you a couple of answers. So I just told you my answer. I actually got ahead of myself. I gave you my answer essentially to this question on Quora: are INFJs supposed to be extroverted? So let me give you, now that you know my answer, and I'm sure each of you would know how, or would have an idea how to answer this question. Let me give you an idea of some of the other answers that came across. So one of them is, she says, it'd be nice to have a portable brain scanner, line up all INFJs, scan them, and see what type of neurotransmitter, acetylcholine or dopamine, their brain prefers. Wouldn't that be nice? Much easier said than done, considering that we haven't had any volunteers. Have an excellent day or night. I'm not sure what that has to do with the question. But I thought it was interesting as an answer. Here's another one. The I stands for introverted, so that would be a no. Okay, fair enough. That's right. That being said, MBTI is based mostly on Jungian personality theory and a Jungian definition of introverted. Is not quite the same thing as the Big Five definition, by which the introverted is often used. Generally, Jung used introverted to indicate subjectivism. A person is not merely an introvert, they are introverted thinker or feeler and an introverted intuitive or sensor. The predominant cognitive function, be it perception, intuition, or feeling, or judging, deciding, thinking, or feeling. And I thought this was interesting that she used the word feeling twice, one on the perception side when she actually means sensing, right? As in physical. And then on the judging side, she uses feeling, which is she's meaning emotional. But then she goes on, if it is introverted, it means that the individuals will perceive or evaluate ideas of this nature through a subjective lens. Put simply, an introvert is a person who looks inward, true, before looking outward. When thinking, formulating a worldview, or solving a problem, this is their method. An introvert is less concerned with what other people believe or what other people's opinions are than a person with the equivalent extroverted orientation. So, she goes on to describe or try to answer the question by describing the differences between extroversion and introversion, but really never comes to a conclusion. It's really not complicated if you understand the cognitive functions and their placement in the cognitive stack, the attitudes associated with them, with each of them. So yeah, are INFJs supposed to be extroverted? No, they're not supposed to be anything. They are certain things, just like the other types, but they're not supposed to be anything. But don't be surprised if you sometimes have to second guess whether or not they're introverted or extroverted. And you may be surprised that as much as you think they're extroverted, that in fact they are introverted. All right, so pretty much that was today's video. My stuff is going to be, we talk about certain things. It's going to tend to be a little lighter, not so in depth necessarily, but the basics are important, and particularly when we're dealing with a lot of folks in the larger quote unquote MBTI community, people interested in Jungian analytical psychology, to define things properly, to explain the models correctly. And I think that's where, with that understanding in teaching those basics, more folks will understand and be able to take advantage of the science in, for themselves, their lives, and in their relationships. And that's what we're all hoping to do. Yes, there's a lot of depth to what we're doing at CSJ. But I don't want to pass up the basics. The basics are the foundation, and the more understanding we have outside the community as to where we're coming from and whatnot, I think the more successful we'll be, the more successful individuals will be. So with that, until next time, we will end today's session. Bye, everyone.
You stole my heart of gold after my silver soul.